I am Andy Brown, and this is the Lunchvox Podcast. Today, I'm joined by an author and editor who's been described by her two grown-up sons as professionally weird and thinks that an immaculate house is a sign of a wasted life. It's Sue Barnard.
Hello, Andy. How are you?
I'm very good, Sue. How are you doing?
Oh, not too badly, thank you. It's quite early in the morning for deep questions like that, really. You better ask me again when I've had some coffee.
Certainly will. So, thank you for joining me today. Much appreciated. As I said, you're an author of a number of books. You're also an editor with Crooked Cat and Ocelot Press.
That's right, yes.
Do you want to tell our listeners a little bit about your books?
Yes, of course. Well, as you say, I'm the author of 6 books, in fact. The 6th one has just come out last week. My first one happened almost by accident, really. That was The Ghostly Father, which was written basically in response to the prompt, write the book you want to read. Now, the book I've always wanted to read is the alternative version of Romeo and Juliet, the one in which things work out better for them than the ending that Shakespeare gave them. I thought, why should there not be such a book? And the answer came back, well, why not indeed? And if it doesn't exist already, then go ahead and write it. And at the time, I was writing it just for myself because it was the ending I've always wanted. But to cut a very long story short, it was first published in 2014, and a lot of people were kind enough to say, oh, I like this is better ending than the original. Sounds as though I'm not the only person who thinks Shakespeare got that one wrong. But having said that, of course, Shakespeare was basing it on an existing story anyway, so I think we can allow him cut him a bit of slack there. And then since then, I've written a couple of what you say romantic intrigue, I suppose. The second one was called Nice Girls Don't, which is a search for family secrets, really. That's set in the early 80s. And the book that came out last week is a companion volume to that, which ties up a loose end which was unintentionally left dangling in Nice Girls Don't. And that book's called Finding Nina. And in Nice Girls Don't, mention is made of a wartime baby who was given up for adoption. And this is the story of what happened to that baby.
What prompted you to go ahead and tie up that loose end then, if it wasn't even intentional?
Well, no, it was just something that happened to be mentioned in a conversation with 2 of the characters. And I only realised afterwards, I thought, well, there's actually another story here. If I give some thought to this, I can probably make a bit more of it. I mean, I don't know if you ever watched Long Lost Family, which started again this week, but my own family history is very unusual, shall we say. And I watch Long Lost Family without fail, and half the time I find myself thinking, crikey, I could have written a script for this. There's some really, really interesting sort of family histories out there. And they're very, very good source material for fiction, really, even though some of it may be based on fact.
I think it's topical as well with the DNA genealogy that people are starting to do at the moment. I've seen some stories in the papers recently of deep family secrets that have been unearthed with families doing DNA swabs.
Well, yes, of course. Also, to share a story from my own family history, which I've discovered from talking to friends is not by any means uncommon. My great-great-grandparents celebrated their golden wedding a year early. Having dug deep into the free BMD, so the birth, marriages and deaths records, I discovered that they were married only 4 months before the birth of their first child. And so I think they realised that in order to keep the secret from anyone who could count up to 9, which is just about anybody, they had to celebrate their golden wedding a respectable 16 months before their first child's 50th birthday.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, exactly. And when I told one of my aunts about this, she said, my goodness, there was a rumour that Granny was pregnant, but nobody dared believe it because she was so prim and proper. I remember their golden wedding, she said. I was 5 at the time, which was after they'd been married for 49 years.
So mathematically, it all adds up now.
It does, yeah.
Okay, well, thank you for that. Now, the premise of the Lunchvox podcast is I've got a board here with 64 different random questions on it. So I'm going to ask you to pick 8 of those over the course of today's episode. And you can do that simply by choosing a number between 1 and 64. I'll play the clip and you can answer the question.
Ready when you are.
Okay, Sue, so give me your first number.
Number 5, please.
Number 5 is this one. Did you like school?
Oh gosh, yes and no. I liked the stuff I enjoyed doing, but parts of it were some things I dreaded. Sport in particular. I was never any good at sport. And art. Now, art was a bit of a contentious issue, really, because our teacher was worse than useless. We got the impression that he wasn't interested in anybody who wasn't already a budding genius. So he didn't actually teach us anything. In fact, thinking about it, I'm sure he'd only gone into teaching because he couldn't make it as a commercial artist. And out of a class of 28 of us, at least 27 were doomed to mediocrity before we'd even picked up a pencil. So art was something that I always thought I couldn't do. And it was only thanks to a dear friend a couple of years ago, actually, who said there's no right and wrong way with art. Just because you were badly taught doesn't mean you can't do it. And she showed me that, yes, there are ways of producing reasonable pieces of artwork, even if you did have a shaky start like I did. As for sport, well, in my typical 1960s sports teachers, PE teachers, they're all raving sadists, in my view. Gosh, that was terrible. The compulsory showers afterwards. When you're at that age and you're a bit self-conscious about body image and so on, the last thing you need is to be thrown into a communal shower with sort of 28 other people.
And did you always have a passion for writing, English creative writing, or is that something that you've found and honed later in life?
Again, a bit of both, really. I think the compulsory composition exercises that we had to do, as it was then called, something that, I think I've done all my life, really, because we did it at school, and then subsequently, I dabbled with poetry, short stories, the occasional stroppy letter to the Times, but nothing more serious than that until I had the idea about the novel, and that was if I started writing it back in 2012, that's when it really kicked off.
Thank you very much. Would you like to give me another number, please?
Oh, right. Number 14, please.
Have you ever been on television or radio?
Both, actually.
Ooh.
I've been on a couple of radio quiz shows, Counterpoint on Radio 4 twice, and in 2016 I appeared on Only Connect, the BBC quiz show that's presented by Victoria Coren Mitchell. That's the lateral thinking one where the questions are range from very difficult to downright impossible.
Yeah, you're a braver person than I am. I've watched Only Connect a number of times, and I'm not sure I would be an ideal candidate.
Well, there's no such thing as an ideal candidate, really. I mean, when it was a friend of mine who was putting a team together, and I said, "Oh well, if you're stuck with somebody, I'll come along." And he said, "Oh yes, that's fine." And he said, "Oh, will you be captain?" I said, "Why?" He said, "Well, because it'll look better if you're sitting in the middle."
BBC Balance.
BBC Balance, yes. It was great fun, and Vicky is a delightful person. She's just as fun and friendly off camera as she is on it. But we didn't make it beyond the first round, but it was fun. And I did manage to do a passable impression of Captain Mannering in answer to one of the questions.
You can't drop that and not give us an impression.
Oh, stupid boy. Well, that was the answer. That was the answer to the question.
Seems like apt in this situation. Thank you. Okay, can I have another number, please?
21, please.
21 is, if our lives were cartoons, which cartoon would you like it to be and why?
Oh, crikey. Probably a cross between Tom and Jerry and the Wacky Racers.
Sounds dangerous.
Yes. No, I'm not really well up on present day cartoons. I hear occasional mention of Captain Marvel and the like, but I'm not really into that sort of thing. So my knowledge of cartoons is limited to my childhood and teenage memories. But I did enjoy the wacky races very much. So, yeah, maybe the wacky races. I'm not quite sure which one I'd be, though. Probably Dick Dastardly and the Ant Hill mob combined. But
Who's the Muttley to your Dick Dastardly?
who's Muttley? Probably a friend from school whose name is Leslie. She could do a very, very good Muttley impression. So, and she had a great sense of humour. So, yes, Leslie it will be.
Okay, can I have another number, please?
We'll have 25 this time, please.
25 is... What's the most useful thing you own?
The most useful thing I own is probably my husband, actually. I wouldn't say I own him, but he's what you might call a domestic god. Very helpful, supportive, excellent cook. His threshold for mess is a lot lower than mine, so he tends to clear up before I get around to it. And, well, yeah, I mean, we've been together for 40-odd years now, so we must be doing something right.
Okay, so a little break between the random questions now. And Sue, talk me through. You've told me that you started writing because you wanted to write the book you wanted to read.
Yeah.
What's your typical process when you're writing, when you're starting to put your words down?
Right. Well, I'll start by making some notes by hand in a notebook, or more likely on the back of an envelope, of a few basic plot ideas, and then I'll go to the computer and just start writing. I try not to edit as I go along. I try and get the words down first, because although one of the most useful pieces of advice I was given by a writer friend was, you can always go back afterwards and edit what you've written, but you can't edit a blank page. So get the words down and then go from there. And don't submit a first draft, because your writing will go through several revisions before it's ready to submit to a publisher, or if you're self-publishing, which a lot of people do these days, you need to get it properly edited by a professional editor, ideally. So once the first draft's finished, I'll put it aside for a week or so, I think, and then go back to it later with hopefully fresh eyes, spot things that I'd missed before, typos, continuity errors, plot holes, loose ends left dangling, and so on. Once I'm happy with the revised version, I'll send it out to beta readers who will read through it and comment on anything that doesn't work for them. Like if there's a massive continuity error, which I'd missed, or factual errors even, those tend to creep in if you're not careful. Once it's come back, have another go at the manuscript, taking account of what people have said. Now, I use the principle, once is an opinion, twice is an accident or a coincidence, 3 times is definitely a message. Now, if one person says, oh, I don't like this, if it is only one person, try to find out why it didn't work for them. And in a lot of cases, it's just an opinion and it's not a deal breaker. But dealing with criticism, well, you just have to develop a thick skin, really.
In this day and age of internet comments and everything else, you must get a lot of feedback on the work that you do. How do you approach that?
I try not to look at it, to be honest. Well, if somebody says, oh, I really liked your book and I've left a review, I'll go and look at that. But I try not to become obsessed by what people have said about my books. If I worried about every single thing everybody said, I don't think I'd ever get out of bed in the morning.
That sounds like a healthy approach, yeah.
Yeah. Well, having said that, I'm seeing this from both sides. I won't give bad feedback on a book myself unless it is so bad that people need to be warned about it. I mean, I can think of 1 or 2 who fit into that category, but at least less said about them, the better, I think.
Okay, right. Shall we move on with some more questions?
Yeah, right. Another number. 34, please.
All right, 34. If you had 6 hours to prepare everything you needed to survive for 1 year on a deserted island, what would you choose?
Right, that's a difficult one. In terms of basic survival skills, you mean, or essentials, or what?
You got 6 hours.
6 hours, right.
You decide, yep.
Okay. Well, a selection of all-weather clothing, I think. A lot of sunscreen, because I get sunburnt quite easily. Some basic medicines. A good botany book, I think, so I'd know what plants were dangerous and what I could eat. A few tools, a tent, a camping stove, and a pan. What else would I need? I presume I wouldn't need a passport, but...
no, you'd be okay. We're just going to abandon you. There's no customs check.
Yeah. I'd take the passport anyway, in case I got rescued. I'd need to be able to get back home, wouldn't I? I own a boat. I'd have to have a boat of some description. A little boat, just to go out and fish. Yes, I need a fishing rod too. Not that I'm any good at fishing, I say. Maybe a net would be better.
Okay, thank you very much. Do you want to give me another number?
42, please. The answer to life, the universe, and everything.
Ah, excellent. 42. If you could teleport, where would you go?
On this planet or anywhere else?
Anywhere at all. You can go right now.
Right. Well, if it was on this planet, I'd go to Australia because I've got family there, and I love to go and see them. But the journey is a real faff. If it was anywhere else, I'd quite like to have a look at Mars. I think just to see if there are little green men up there, and if there are, whether they are. They're probably a darn sight more intelligent than we are. I'd like to assume I could converse with them. I'd see if they've looked for us in the way that we've looked for them, and if so, what they think about us. I mean, we must provide them with goodness knows how much entertainment. I mean, have you seen that cartoon of the aliens looking at Earth from the spaceship? And it's in November, I think. And one's saying to the other, last month they were lobotomizing pumpkins. And this month, they're stuffing bread up a turkey's behind. This planet has issues.
Is that something you'd be tempted to write about? Extraterrestrial science fiction?
Possibly. I'd have to read up a bit more about it, really. It's not something I've ever tackled. And a friend of mine has written a wonderful science fiction trilogy called Terza. Terza by Kay Sluterbeck. Highly recommended. I think it's only available on Kindle at the moment, but she's taken the premise that Earth dies and the last human is rescued and is taken to live somewhere else. And I honestly don't think I could improve on that. On balance, I'd probably leave that to the experts.
Okay, thank you. Right, so your next number, please.
We'll go for number 50 this time, please.
What is your opinion on clowns?
Scary. Scary and not particularly funny. Years and years ago as a child when I went to the circus, they scared the hell out of me. I know they're supposed to amuse and entertain and so on, but they just look so, creepy. Having said that, I appreciate that they're extremely clever because they have to look clumsy but be very agile so they can fall without hurting themselves, and doing all those clever, complicated acts in clunky costumes, stupid shoes, and in some cases masks, must take some doing. And I couldn't even do that straight, let alone rigged up like that. So mixed feelings about clowns, really.
I think they're terrifying nightmare beasts, and I wouldn't go near one if you paid me.
Yeah. Well, I haven't done for years, so that's explain it.
Okay, what's your final number?
62, please.
Right, 62 is... If you could create a new animal, what would it look like?
Ooh, it would probably have 4 legs, a tail, a horn, but I'm not sure where.
Okay.
Yeah, big. Whether it's on its forehead or on its nose. I'm thinking of rhinos and unicorns here, and probably big blue eyes, and it could talk.
What would it say?
Hello.
And where would it live?
Where would it live? Probably in my garden shed.
Okay.
But I have to clear all the rubbish out first.
What are you going to call it?
What am I going to call it? Well, it's male or female. If it's female, I'd call it Gloria. And if it's male, I'd probably call it Fred.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well, thanks, Sue, for joining me today on the Lunchvox podcast. I hope you enjoyed it.
Very much. I hope you did. I hope I haven't confused your listeners too much.
No, not at all. I think that's the premise, really. That's what we're here for.
Right.
Sue's latest book, Finding Nina, was made available on the 3rd of June. Where can people go and get that if they want to read?
It's available on Amazon in ebook and paperback format, as are all my books.
Okay. Thank you very much, Sue. It's been a real pleasure.
Thank you very much, Andy.
And we'll be back next Wednesday with another episode of the Lunchvox Podcast. If you want to get in touch, then you can tweet us at Lunchvox Podcast. You can find us on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram using the same handle. And we'll be back then. Thanks. Bye.